Hey, Fitzy here, back at it again with another one. More work on the Mustang. Are you guys getting sick of this thing yet? I know I am, but I got to get it done. So it's going to be more boring, bolting pieces on, painting stuff up, fitting stuff up, but I do make some cool lines, cool fuel line, and cool transmission lines. But I run into one trouble with a noise in the back of the motor, and it put me back a couple of days. I couldn't figure out what it was. We're going to go over all this now. Stick around. It's time to play around the power steering lines. What I got here is the original lines. I picked them up from Rock Auto for the actual Cavalier, and I'm going to have to tweak them. This one here I think I should get away with, and I might just end up having to cut off the end of it, I don't know. And it should work there because that's the return line. This one here now is a bit trickier. It's got a lot of bends in it, and the problem with it is that like this here mounts on the rack, and it almost goes from here straight over to the pump type thing with a small bit of a turn on. So I got to play around, try to straighten all this up for this one here first. And I'm also going to have to get two fittings, a fitting made to go from this to the actual pump, which is good because this way here I can get two male fittings to go one to this and one to this, and just make up a little pipe to shape it, say this is how I want it shaped, and then they can make it up for me. So I'll go to a local line shop and get that made. So what I'm going to do here now, I'm going to play around with now straightening this up. I got to try to see if I can get this half straight so I can start routing it underneath the car. Because right now, this is all over the place. This is designed to go back through the car, and I want it to go forward. And so I'm going to play around with this now and see about straightening that up. Well, that's not half bad. It's, you know, it'll work. It's underneath the car. And it beats having to get a line made up for it, so. And it's got the fittings on it, all the proper ones and everything on. So I'm going to get underneath and now start fitting and see which way I got to tweak this here to get this to go into the rack and have that going forward. So I got it all rigged up. It comes out of the pump and it turns. And basically the way this looks on the car is sort of like this here. And it goes forward to here. Now this here will turn up and go into the back of the pump. I got to get a line made up about this long that'll come up and go on a 90 degree to go into the back of the pump. So I'll take the pump off and take this in with me, and I'll say this is what I want made up, and they'll make fitting or whatever, it'll go in the back of that, and just make me up a steel line to go inside the pump itself. And that one there. So now what I got to do is I got to modify this one, do the same thing again, and like that, this one here was here, there's one above it, and it'll basically follow the same route as well. All I need to straighten this up, as you can see, there's a large kink in that. Now, you're not going to get that out of it all together, so you got to take it. And all I'm doing is using the actual fitting itself to hope to grab onto the thing so I can pull it away from it. And I'll just work my way around it like so. Straighten it up. A lot of the bends in these are usually put in with machines, and so they got kinks in them. They're not like a real mandrel bend type of kink in them. Here it is, I got that all straightened up. Some of you might be just saying, well, Tony, why don't you just get lines made up? Getting hydraulic lines made are not cheap, okay? I got these lines on Rock Auto and they're already there. The fittings around them, the proper flares on the end of them. I don't have this flaring tool, okay? It's not a cheap tool to buy. I don't do it a lot. I don't justify buying the tool just so I can do this brake line here, or this power steering line here now. I didn't know what fittings I needed, okay? These two here fittings, I didn't know what they were. And by buying these lines, I got the fittings. I'm just straightening them up so that I can fit them on the car and work. That'll be fine. I won't bother with that. The problem with these lines are they were manually bent, so they got kinks in them, and they're very hard to get kinks out. You saw me hammering them there, and what I was doing is when I straightened them out, I was hammering the outside radius of the bend. Just for argument's sake, I was hammering this side of the bend here all the way around so I can drive the metal to go this way into where they had the die put to. So like when you look at this here, you can see right here, I was hammering right here all the way around. But when you come back over here, there's the inside radius. There's no hammer marks, right? All I was doing was forcing the metal to go back into the radius itself, right? And just so I can get a nice round edge. Now that's fine for that. It would have been nice to be a nice straight pipe and all that type of stuff, but I'm not getting into it. This is something now I want to turn around and get finished, so this here will be fine for us. I'm gonna go down now. I gotta make that bend there now, so I got that there straight away, so I gotta put a bend in it there now to go back through it. So what do I bend my line with? This is an old bender I picked up probably 20 years ago. I've after breaking the handle off it. I've after replacing the bolts in it, putting a piece of steel on the bottom side of it to give it a bit of strength, repairing it. I just like the bends that it makes. I bought this one a number of years ago, and I'm not fussy on it. It sits in my box. I really don't do a lot with it. It's a decent little bender, but I don't know. I just prefer this one. You get used to something and you like using it, stick with it, okay? You may be wondering how I'm marking to make bends and whatever. Every time I put do brake lines or fuel lines or anything like that, I'll bolt this in place and I'll go to where I want it to bend, okay? Now I'll mark the bend, the length that I want. Now if I want to bend a 90-degree bend or make the bend, I will put this line this way on the outside edge of the bend. So basically, for argument's sake, say this bend wasn't in it yet. This one here. When I was underneath the car, I would have marked this one like so. I would have marked that like that, see? That's the way that would have been marked. That type of thing there. So that way you know where your actual bend is. So I come over here and I have this bend here now that I got marked. And I'm going to put that in the bender. And all I'm going to do, put it in my old school bender, is you can see now where the inside of this is to in here. I want to line this up with the inside edge of this here because that's where I want the bend to be. And I'm going to bend this here around this here. And I'm going to have that lined up so that it's square and level with the bender. Not have it on an angle or have it like this underneath. It'll be basically in the middle of the bender and I'll bend it through that. Don't make fun of my bender. I've got this a lot of years and I've had a lot of benders and I keep coming back and using this one. I get the nicest bends on these, on this one. It's a nice little radius bend, see? So there you have it. Two of the lines are all made up. I end up putting a bend in it here, clearing up here, because I wanted to deal with changing oil on it. So now I just run a hose from here up to that one there. That's my return line. And then I got to make a fitting to go on this one here, line piece. That'll go from there, from this one here up to there. I'll just get a steel line made up. I'll bring that to town and see if I get the right fittings for both of them and get the right proper input on them. Hope you can see this here. I went and put a fitting in the back of the pump and I put a fitting into the line. And all I done is I made up this little copper piece of pipe that I got the length of it. It bottoms out in the pump and it bottoms out on the line. And all that is just, pull that out there, if I can get it out there. That's all it is, though. Okay? But this is my overall length. And this is the piece of pipe that I got to made with the fittings on it that I got to have put on it as well. So I'll see whether I can get one of them made steel. And then I can just bolt that onto there and have that done. Sometimes I get carried away with bending stuff up. I enjoy playing around with that stuff. That is the fuel line going from the carburetor to the fuel pump. Yeah, that was a bit of fun. Goes from the fuel pump down there. I haven't got it hooked up or nothing. And it comes up, goes behind the power steering pump, which bolts on right here. So I had to clear that. Then I had to come up and tweak it along that. I had to make sure there was room for the water neck. Then I had to go across the top of the dome. I had to raise it up over the water pump in the top pan. And along the top there and up to the... Oh my. So it's going to be a piece of hose there. And a piece of hose there. That'll be it. You're probably going to say, why don't you just make it out of hose? I don't like that. I'm a bit of a drag racer, and in drag racing, you're only allowed to have 6 inches of a hose on a fuel system, a maximum. And I've always played that rule. So I prefer to have steel lines running along everything. And so I got it made now. I'll paint that now, and that'll look brand new. Oh yes, I got my carburetor mounted. Had to do some tweaking with it. I had to put a spacer on it because nothing would clear the intake or the top pans and everything over on the other side. So I had to put like a 1-inch spacer underneath it. That's fine. The throttle cable, I just had to tweak this back a bit, the bracket, and re-drill a new hole. You can see it there. See the old hole. And then I just put a spring on it, and that seems to work best kind. So all that's good. So I got fuel line in it, and I got the power steering vacuum line hooked up, and I also have the PCV line hooked up, which I was never had hooked up yet because I never had the carburetor. So slowly getting it done. So I got the fuel line installed. That's done. I went ahead then and I went and bolted on all the painted pieces that I had. Pretty well with the fan, the pulleys, the radiator, the hinges. I'm running into problems over here. The hinge I bolted on, and the bolt down here started to spin, so I had to take it off. I got to weld that on the back side there now, so I'm going to bolt that back on. It's always some kind of troubles. Up here, I ordered in the radiator hoses for this, for Mustang, this one here, and apparently this is for the later Mustang, this gooseneck, because this is supposed to go on an angle, like so, and that goes straight up. So I got a line on one of them. I got to change that out, and I'm running into all kinds of troubles with the power steering pump. I was going to get a fitting made from here down. Apparently can't buy this fitting locally, the one that goes into that. So I turned around, and what I ended up doing, I ended up ordering in the power steering line for that pump. And my plan was to take this line here and the line on the Cavalier one and make one from the two. And then I run into some troubles. Okay, I talked about, this is the fitting here that goes into the rack on the Cavalier, and I talked about getting a little line made from here to go into the power steering pump. The problem I had, I couldn't get this fitting, and I couldn't get the fitting going into the power steering pump. So what I went and did, I ordered in a second Cavalier line, which it seems to be a bit different, because I figured that this fitting, which is the same as this one here, screwed into here. I couldn't figure it out because I couldn't bend this around to figure it out. And I knew a standard fitting wouldn't fit it. I knew it was metric. So I figured this one here would bolt into here. It won't, okay? That don't bolt into there. That fitting don't. It's still smaller again. So that scrapped that idea. Also what I did on the power steering pump is on old Ford, I went and ordered in the proper line for this. Now these weren't that expensive. I think I might have $20, $25 spent on the two of these. There were for the fittings and getting everything. Now this got a very unusual flare on the end of it, so I'm glad I did get it the way it's put together. This is the one that goes into the pump here. So my plan was then to say, hey, why don't I just turn around and cut this line off, use one of these joint fittings and join it into this line here on the other end. But I ran into a problem there. They're a different size line. That's a smaller line than this line here. So that killed that idea. So now what I got to do is I got to go out to a place where I can get lines made up, and I got to get them to put this length of line here on the end of this one here. So I'm going to cut this off, make up one of these here, or make up a new line for this side because that looks like a pretty standard, straightforward line. Put this fitting on it and crimp it onto this line here. So then I'll use the Ford line that screws in the back of the thing. I've already sized it all up. And basically it's got to be roughly about that long there, going on there. So all I'll get them to do is, I was going to get the bends, and I said no, I'll just get a straight piece made on it, and I'll bend it myself and get that made up. So I'm going to run out now and do that. This here has been giving me a bit of a hard going over. You got to realize this is a metric flare, this is a standard flare. So I've run into, well, this is a standard flare here. Standard flare. It's kind of funny though, look at this line. This line here and this line here is the same size, okay? But coming out the other end of the line, it's a smaller diameter line. How did it drive you, that would? Because all I was going to do is just cut that off, put one of them union fittings in there, would have been perfect, but no. So I'm going to go out now and get that all straightened away. So we'll move on to getting the transmission lines glued up. So one of the things I had to do is install a transmission cooler. I had this one here, this is in stock. I know what it's out of. I went upstairs from my collection and I had that, so I figured I'd put it in there. Now me, I kind of overcomplicate things sometimes, I don't know. I wanted to mount this on the front of it, but I didn't want to have it mounted to the radiator itself in terms of like bolted to the actual, like mounted to it, just in case I had to remove the rad or whatnot in it. And I didn't want this fully tight to the radiator. I wanted a bit of airflow between the cooler and the rad itself, so she won't draw heat off the rad itself. What I went and did, I just had some scrap steel here. These are just already pre-bent pieces of angle. 18 gauge that I had kicking around. You probably seen me, I saves everything up over here on the end of the pipe bamble. Had a bunch of old stuff. I usually saves all my scraps and whatnot, so I had some pieces in there, and I just turned around and drilled them out so they bolted on here. And what I done is actually just put the bolt through this side here and welded it on instead. I'm always about making things more efficient to the point of just one bolt. You don't need to take 2 or 3 wrenches to get things let go. So that's what I done. I bolted it on here and up here as well. And up here in the corner, what I did is I took in the 2 radiator mount screws and basically I just put the clips on this here, so that'll let me know that it's level. So I went and put them in there, and then I'll come down the bottom and drill 2 new holes through the bottom of the rad sport into the radiator. And they actually bolt through, and again, I went and welded the nuts on this side here just to make it easier to bolt together. So I'm going to test fit this now and make sure everything's fitting all right. So basically, there's how it mounts. Here are the 2 upper rad support mounts. You can see them there. And she bolts right in through there. And then I just basically got her bolted on. I drilled a new hole down the bottom there to come in through. And that's there. Now there's a bit of a distance here between that and the radiator. Nothing's touching. And that could sit there on its own. I'll come in through and up with the 2 transmission lines. So it fits nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop it off and paint all the brackets up. Sometimes it gets a bit carried away with stuff, but just a nice little tidy setup. And I see some, like, you know, just strapping them onto the thing. That's usually the way. I never had either kit here for that. I never had a foam or nothing to stick it to the radiator. I wasn't just going to mount it directly to it, so I made do. So I have trans cooler put in place, just temporary. I took the radiator out so I can easily work around with the lines and everything. I got one line got to come up here, and the other line got to come over to here and up, okay? All I'm going to do is I'm going to hand build the lines for this, and I'm just going to take it one bend at a time. So basically what I'm going to end up doing first is I'll do the flared line, and I'll go straight down here, and I'll put a 90 on it to bring me over this way. I don't overthink this. I don't go and try to dream up every inch of the bends. I'll do one bend at a time and decide after that and which way I'm going and whatnot, and just taking my time. I'll walk you through it here in a sec. But I done a guesstimate. I measured from here back to where the transmission line is underneath the car. I'll show you that when it gets down to it. I'm putting a pressure fittings on that down there. So I got to make a piece to go back for that, so I can unbolt the line from there. If I ever have to take the motor transmission out, I can just unscrew it down there, and I haven't got to worry about all the lines having to come with it. So, so I measured it up, and it's about 3 and a bit feet, and so I'm going to be safe with it, and I'm going to cut a piece off 5 feet long. To get a straight piece of line out of a roll, all I ever done is I got the old engine block that I use for my bench vise or bench grinder. Down there in the corner is pretty heavy, and there's a hole where the start motor bolt used to go, and I just puts it in there and just starts unrolling it. If you had something heavy to do it, you should be able to unroll it, and you'll get it pretty straight doing it this way. I just got into the habit of clamping it into the bench here. This is all I've ever done with it because the handles broke off on it. I got access to actual bending the line and whatnot. So I'm going to, what I got to do now, I went over and measured it up, and from where the transcooler is down to my first bend is about 2¼ inches. And that'll give me enough line to put a bit of hose on to put a couple of clamps on it. So first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a bend in at 2¼ inches. Now when I make my bends, I just made that one there. When I measured 2¼ I'm measuring from the end of it here down to the inside edge here. That's usually what I'm measuring from, right? So about 2½ there, I think, can I? 2½. Oh, I'm close. 2¼ 2 3/8. That's close enough. And that's how I measured. So when I goes to my next bend, I'll measure it off from here, and I'll want the bend to be on the inside edge to go from that. So next thing I do now is I got to put a little bit of a bubble flare on this to hold the line in place. So let's do that. No fancy tools for me, just a simple old flaring tool that, you know, pretty well almost everybody got. I just got it set up here now, and I'm going to set the height. I got the height set by the thickness of that. That's how you set them. Going to that. All I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in there. I'm only going to go down half the distance. I'm not going to push it all the way down. So like when I push it down on that, I'll only push it down a little bit, probably half of what you see there now. A lot of people have a lot of troubles with these. I have a lot of success with them. The biggest thing I do is when I get it to the point where it's close, I'll always rock it back and forth to let itself center itself. And then I'll just turn around and I'll basically keep checking it to make sure everything's centered. Because a lot of times if you just screw it right down, it'll be off center and it'll kick the line sideways, right? So I'll just tighten this down now. Won't go all the way down. That's as far as I'll go down. I won't bottom out. And give you a nice little flare on the end of it to for your line to mount to. Okay. Nice little flare, a little bubble like that. Now I put the hose over and clamp it here, and you get a nice little line on it. Now I've measured up for my second bend, and I'm going to go with 4 inches. Now all I'm doing here is that I know this is the inside bend here, and the thickness of the bar sticks out roughly about 1/4 inch. So I measure over 4 inches from the outside edge here, okay? And then I put the 4 inches just about 1/8 of an inch or so past this here, just so that when it bends around, it'll be on the outside of it. So that's all I'll do with that, to bend that around there. Like I say, I do one bend at a time. So I got this one here made. This came down, and this comes over underneath the rad support, and it bends back. Now I got to go back, and the motor mount is here. I got to bend it over and go around the motor mount. So I got to do next, right? So I'll just do it one section at a time as I'm going, and I'll measure from here to the outside edge of my bend here, and then put a 90 on this here. I figure this may have to step over probably 2 inches, so this will have to come back, step over 2 inches, and go straight back. When I'm measuring to the outside of my bend, you can see the thickness here. See how far that sticks out past this outer edge here, which is roughly about, I'd say, 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch or whatever. I'll roughly estimate that's where my outer part of my bend will be, right there on that point there. So when this bends around, this will be my outside edge. Now I marked here, you can see where my mark is to. That's just on the outside edge of this here. So when I bend this around, I'll basically, this here will be about right here, and that will give me my distance, which in this case is 20 inches. Now when I measure across that there, I'm pretty close. I'm not right on, a little bit more, about 20 1/8, but I'm close. I can get away with that. I'm always giving myself a little bit of leeway when I'm doing this. I'm going to go on and bend up a bunch of bends on this now and show you what I got made up. Now doesn't that look enjoyable? It's tricky to get in there. Now I got to repeat the whole process again and come back with another line, the same shape as it, and just come over here further and tip up. Let the fun begin. The trick here is to I having the line go alongside this one here, coming up here, and then it comes over and comes up. All I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the back this time, and I'm going to start here and come back here, in here, down here. As you can see, the bends will be tighter here, it'll be bigger here, shorter here, and then it's going to come forward like that there and make it up. And that's how I'm going to do it. I'll start from the back side because I got lots of access back here, so I'm just going to take the same one now, put my bend here, and start fitting that inside that one. All I'm doing is I'm laying them side by side like that there, And that's where I want the outside of my bend to be, right there. So I just marked it, and I'll go up and I'll bend that one there, and then I'll come over and I'll fit it, and I'll bend another one there, and I'll just continue on from that. Sometimes I get carried away with stuff. Hopefully I can get two of them in underneath the car. I was going to make clamps for them, but I think I'm getting carried away with it now. I think I'm just going to put them together with a couple of zip ties, and I'll just run through one through the middle. It's the quickest and easiest way to do it as I'm going back through the car. I don't want to go, I can get carried away with this, and but that's it. So got the transmission lines all hooked up. They runs in down here and it comes across here, as you can see, and it tips up, and I got the radiator mounted there. And you can see the lines will come back through here, and it comes back, and I got little clamps made on them. They're just from basically from zip ties. I went and clamped the main power line off because it was hanging down there. There's one in there, you can see what I got done. I just got one wrapped around it. I got a hollow part to keep them separated. And it comes back, wraps around about the mount, and then goes back over the top, and then goes back down this way. And then I got two connectors going to the lines on the transmission. So that's the transmission lines done. So I went ahead and I went and hooked up the shifter. I got the shifter hooked up and the shifter put back in the car. So what's left down here now is them two power steering lines. I'm still waiting on the line, and I got to do the rear end. But I'm going to wait on the rear end. I'm going to start on the interior, and I get the dash and everything in. I went ahead and I found the proper gooseneck. A friend of mine, Curtis, had one, and that was the one that was on it. And I changed it out. I needed one under 45 degrees, so now my hoses work. So then I got all my hoses hooked up. Got the radiator put in. I think that's basically all I got done up here. All I got left to do now is put fan belts on this. I'm not worried about that. I'm going to wait till I get the power steering lines hooked up first. So that's basically it for down here. I got the vacuum line hooked up for the distributor. Booster and all that's hooked up. Carburetor, linkages, all that's done. I got to tidy up the wires a bit. And I got to do the air cleaner. I also got to do a strut tower brace across here. There was one in the car before. I got to modify it for the air cleaner. So and I got that hinge straightened away. The bottom bolt, I just welded on the stud on the back side of it so I can bolt it on. So I got that done. Slowly coming together. I'm going to move on now to, as you can see, I got the shifter in it. And I got the shifter put in it. And I've done a few other small things. I had to replace the high beam switch. I got that done. So now what I'm at here now, I'm going to start installing this dash pad. But the first thing I'm going to do is go and clean this mess of a windshield. And that way I haven't got to worry about it when the dash pad is in it and cleaning it. Well, now that was a chore. I'd say I'm 2 hours trying to bolt that dash pad in. Between trying to get all the holes lined up, these outside ones never even lined up because it's an aftermarket dash pad. I had to re-drill the dash in order to put them on. And then up here on the top, every one of these screws, where are the two? One there, right? Them screws there, oh boy, did they ever put up a fight. I'm trying to line them up. But I will say I am pleased with it. In terms of, I expected it where it was aftermarket not to actually fit in there perfect. Like even this vent, none of the holes were there for the vent. This vent here, right? None of the holes were there for that. Like none of the holes were in the padding for the screws. Then you had to go searching for the holes for the screws to go into because they were already there. And other than this here, the two holes on either side, the ones there lined up and bolted up. The rest of it was just time consuming. I had to get it all in there, and you can't just put a drill down there because you'll mark up the dash doing that. So you only got that much room to get in there, right? So it was a bit of a chore. I got it done. So now I'm here going through the wiring here now, and I got a bunch of bulbs that are bad, so I got to go hunt down some bulbs now, and then I can start putting together all the dash. Well, I finally got the power steering line made. Took two basically lines to make it. What they did, they ended up taking the Cavalier line, which is this end up here and down to here, and then cutting off the Ford line, which is this one here, cut the hose off it, put a new end on it, and put two of them together. So now I got one Cavalier on one side, Ford on the other. So bit of shagging around, but I got it figured out and got it made up. So now to get that installed. Well, the last thing I had to do down here, I thought, was put them power steering lines on. I got them on. So, as you can see, rack is out of it. All the steering's let go. Starter's off it. For some reason, I turned this engine over a little while ago, right there, and I was getting a scraping noise at the back of the engine. So I've been here now pretty well the whole day chasing it down. There's a counterweight. I got pictures I'll show you here. This flex plate, there is very little clearance between the flex plate and the counterweight and the flywheel. And it just seems like when I bolt the starter on, this is what I've after figuring out playing with this all day. I bolt the starter on, it'll scrape over here and it'll scrape over on this side. I let the start motor go and take it off the car, and I can rotate it and nothing touches. Whatever I'm doing is one of those tighten the starter up. Now there's a bunch of kinks here. Someone was at it before. So I'm here now. I got everything hauled out of the way so I can get up with a hammer dolly now and try to see if I can flatten that out to keep it from, because what's happening is the plate is being pushed in with the starter. I bolted on the 2 bolts and it turns freely. So it's the starter itself when it rests on this intersection. So I've been fighting with this for the whole thing, and I end up having to take the rack out of the steering out of it, everything out of the way of the starter, let go some wiring. I'm telling you, you can, you think you're getting ahead and then you're going backwards. I'm not a young man anymore, and I can tell you I am tired of this lying on the floor thing. It's taking me a while to do everything down here. I just find it too hard. Getting down, getting up, getting down, getting up. It's like he gets down, he gets in, and you got a handful of wrenches, but you haven't got the right one, so you got to get back out again. I've been running into this situation now for the whole time I've been down here doing work on this car on the bottom side of it, and I was hoping to finish this off today down here so I don't have to get down here unless something goes wrong after the fact. But on my list of to-do list, I had everything done, and all I had to do was check to find fix this scrape, and now I got everything hauled apart again, and I'm a whole day now going up and down. So oh my. Okay, it's day 2. I had to get away from this. Here's the counterweight I'm talking about, and here's the starter bolted up. I'm going to show you now exactly what's going on, and I've been fighting with this now. Talked to a few of my friends, and I got a few things I'm going to try, but I'm going to show you exactly what's going on. This counterweight here is going to go in through here and bring up over here. And it's brought up solid. Now here is the starters off, and you can see the clearances that I got to deal with. Now I'm thinking that when the starter's bolted in, it's pushing this in tight. Now I got a couple of things I got to try first. I've after dollying this all flat. I've after sanding the outer edge. I've after sanding the inner edge, and it's still doing it. Only when the starter's bolted on. I can spin this around now, and this will spin freely. And it also will hook over here, around this area here, when the starter's bolted on. So it's flexing the plate, like pushing down the plate and tweaking it and moving it over here. By rights, this plate should be replaced with a new one, I'm willing to say, but it shouldn't be doing this like this. But you look at the clearances I have there now, you would think that would be fine, but it's not. So I got a couple of things I'm going to play around with here now that I'm going to have a quick look at, and when I come back, hopefully I'll have it fixed. First of all, in my defense, I'm a Chevy guy. I've worked on a lot of Chevy stuff. I haven't worked on a lot of Fords over the years. I played around with this, and then a friend of mine, Curtis, contacted me and explained to me about a problem with the converter pushing out on the flywheel. So he said, just loosen off the bolts and see what happens. When I loosened off the bolts, the converter pushed back, and the gap right here opened up. I come to realize there's an actual drain plug in the converter, and what I went and did, and there's a place for it had to be. This can be clocked in 4 locations all the way around, and the problem with it was I had this underneath this mount underneath the counterweight itself. So when I tightened up these bolts, it pushed the flywheel this way. So I had to let go of the transmission, let everything go. I put a couple of dowels on the end of it, slid the transmission back, and turn around so I could spin the flywheel or spin the converter. And then I lined it up and then brought it up, and it all just fell into place. There was something else there. As you can see the gap there now, there's a large gap there now between it all. So I got to bolt this all back together, had everything let go, had let go of the exhaust, had let go of the transmission mount, had let go, of course the rack was let go, had it all let go, everything I had done. But I found a problem. Anyway, thanks Curtis. I'm going to move on and get this all bolted up. Well, I got that all put back together. That was a dilemma for sure. I wanted to get all that finished up before I moved on to get anything else done. I still got to take the rear end out of this car, but I need it on the ground because I got to jack it up with jack stands underneath the chassis, take the rear end out of it and the springs and everything out of it. But now I got everything done underneath that I need to get done other than the rear end. I need to get it down. It was a lot easier to get in and out of the car. So it's been up on them blocks a long time. A few years now. I built them blocks and put that car up on that. It's been on a long time. It's weird to see it down low. But I got that done. And now I can get back to what I was at. I'm jumping all over this because it's just like when something shows up, I puts it on it, I'm waiting for it. And I works along and everything else as I'm going. But if you're familiar with these type projects, you know the same process. So now what I got to get done here now is I got to get the dash cluster put back in. And the glove box put in, radio, all that type of stuff. I'm going to leave the radio alone for now because I got to still make a back dash pad. And the radio's upstairs and I got to move the car to get the radio. So the seats are up there too, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. And that'll be the last install. I'll just get the glove box and the glove box door installed and get the gauge cluster in it and get it all ready. I'm going to leave the steering wheel off it for now. It's just easier to work on everything with the wheel off it. So get that much done and that'll be ready to go. And then I can start on stripping apart the rear end and getting that all done. So I'm getting close, getting very close. My list is getting smaller. I can get a lot more stuff done on my list, crossed off the list. Right, and I never showed you it. I did have a second page. Mostly all that was interior. So, but I'm getting through the list one bit at a time. It's a long list, and then I can actually fire this puppy up. So I got everything's ready to go now. I just got to fill it all up with fluids. All my issues are crossed, and just hopefully there's no leaks and everything. I'm not going to get into that right yet. I'm trying to get everything finished up because I got no drive shaft in it, so I'm not putting no transmission fluid in it till the drive shaft's in it, and I'm not putting a drive shaft in it till the rear end is changed. So I'm going to pick and poke at that, but what I'm going to go at now, just look at this. Just look at this mess. Who made this mess? I cleaned all it up now. To freshen up the glove box door, that needed to be done. That was the paint was peeling off it and everything. I got the wheels back. 3 of them were bent. I got them straightened. And I got them all stripped. So now all I got to do is start polishing the bands. Plan is I'm going to polish these outer bands and paint the inside a grey colour. So I'll start playing around with it. Shouldn't be too bad. I start sanding the section of it there with a bit of 180 just to see how hard it was. A few hours there to sand them and get them polished. But that's no big deal. I've done a lot of that over the years. So now the first thing I got to get into is I got to clean up and prep the face on these plates and everything. I turn around, as you can see, I got 2 of them here. I think the car came originally with wood grain, and it had a wood grain glove box. But when we went and ordered in the thing, Wendy liked the black better. So we turned around. We also had a black glove box door, which I've already painted, cleaned up and painted. Nothing fancy about that. So I got a new cover and a new lens. I'm wondering how good that's going to fit. So basically I got 2 of these here. Now this one here seems to have the brighter needles than this one. It doesn't matter about the mileage because I don't know about this car. The car's been rebuilt a dozen times. So we don't know what the mileage is in it. So I'm going to take these apart now and clean up this one here and make a nice little cluster for it. Well, that's a bit more done. I went ahead and I got that gauge cluster rebuilt. As you can see, I got all the new lens and the new cover and everything on it. Cleaned up the gauges. Then I installed it. Of course, being aftermarket, it doesn't fit in perfect. So you play around with that for a while, you get it. I got the glove box door installed, and I got a new paper, that's all I call them, paper glove box. There was never ever one in this, so I installed that. That was tricky. Of course, that's aftermarket. That fits lovely. Haven't put stereo in it yet. That's upstairs. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I installed the shifter. I got that all wired in with the light. It was never wired in before. I got the kick panels put in place. I'm trying to finish everything off on this. I have a couple of wires, speaker wires, and a couple of lives here, like power sources for stuff. And I got them left hanging down, so I know that they're, like everything else up underneath the dash has been figured out what it's for. And this stuff here is stuff that is just hanging there. So I got 2 lives here. I don't know what they're for. and I got 2 speaker wires, but that's fine. So basically my list is getting smaller and smaller. I got to put the gauges in it next, and I got to put seats back in. I'm trying to finish off the entire car inside, less door panels, because I got to put the door handles on the outside in order to do that. So I want everything done, but just prior to paint, so I haven't got to worry about none of that. A lot of you have asked about why I haven't heard it running yet. The biggest thing with this is basically the point now. I got a wire up distributor of fluids. The problem with it is that I got to replace the rear end in this, so that's going to be in the next video. I'm going to be stripping it all apart, replacing the center section, going through the brakes. I may have to order in some brake parts. The reason why I never ordered in, because I don't know what's in this for a rear end. I don't know if it's a Granada rear end, if it's a Mustang rear end. All I know is it's a 9-inch, so I don't know. I got to figure out the drums and the shoe sizes and stuff like that, figure that out. So, and the reason why I haven't got it running is I got to put a drive shaft in it. Put a drive shaft in, I got to put transmission fluid in it. So I just want to finish this whole thing right off. My whole goal with this car still is to finish it so it's a driver, and all I got to do is to paint it. And basically I want to get all the mechanical end of it done, so I haven't got to worry about damaging the body and stuff like that, like, you know, and having to haul a whole bunch of stuff apart after it gets it painted. And like, some people probably just take this now and just go ahead and paint it and then put it all together, but I got it all painted inside the doors. I just want to get it painted. So I got a few more things done. It mightn't seem like much of a video. You know, a lot of you guys are looking for the fabrication end of it. I got to get this car done, so basically I'm staying at this now for a while till I gets it all done. It's a slow process because I'm trying to detail stuff as I'm going. I had to paint the glove box and had to clean up the shifter and wire up the shifter, and it's just these little details that you do, and it just, you know, before you know it, you got hours gone into stuff and you don't realize it. So, but anyway, I'm gonna leave this one here, and I hope the tips were good, and until next time. Freshen up the glove box door. That needs to be done. That was paint peeling off and everything. Hey, bud. Oh yeah, won't even talk to me now. Broken arse. Come back here. Where you go? Huh? What? Enough. What? That's going, yeah? Enough.